Well, maybe the table is different as well. You know, maybe I pushed that in a different position. In any case, I think we're alright. Okay, I've turned it on. Yes, I have. Okay. So, here we are now. And, okay. And what I'll do, unless you have any suggestions otherwise, is I'll just kind of carry on doing a little bit more for a few minutes and then focus in on probably one of the eyes and just kind of bring that up to a level of detail. And I will set the alarm just in case. 13:24. So 13:40, yes, it doesn't it? Oh, for fuck's sake, sorry. Okay. Done. Okay. Alright, so we'll see how it goes now. Yeah, so there she is. And with my eyes half closed, I think it is helpful, like I said yesterday, to continue re-establishing the darks and to half close your eyes all the way through, that you keep remembering where the shadow is in relation to the light. And it'll be different, of course, in the way that you're painting her from your angle. But for me, the shadows are clearly on this side of the face more. Like this side of the nose has a shadow attached to it. That I can do with explaining a bit more now. Excuse me. So I'm using the cadmium red and the sap green, and sometimes a touch of ultramarine blue into it can deepen the tone a bit. If it's too reddish or rusty coloured, a bit of ultramarine blue in there can be a good colour to help to knock it back, to stop it being so warm. So maybe just put a touch in there, running down the side. And then I can see underneath the nose, so I can, see now, what am I doing? Finding the position of the cavity. Yesterday, Lily had a good laugh when she saw my demonstration picture. She said, oh. So it was like, she was admiring your work, like. But when she came to mine, she said, God.
Our children can be quite cruel.
Oh, fantastic. And she was, I do think that there was things there that I could have adjusted early. So you know now. But I think it's alright to just kind of always be grappling, really. Sometimes you're delighted, sometimes you're not. And I think it's no harm to not get too delighted with yourself through the process. Because as soon as you do, the wind is knocked out of the sail. Okay. Now, I think this is an example of where I'm going to need to move the mouth. And there's a few of you that might have had to do that, to move the mouth up a little bit. So I'm just going to put it where I think it now is. And then I'll also adjust the jawline, just to really get the tilt, because I wasn't quite getting the foreshortening, I don't think, that was happening there. And I think there is something satisfying about really going for what I see now freshly, you know, rather than kind of thinking it's good enough, I'll just fill it in. I kind of want to continue looking keenly and to do my best to explain what now I'm seeing. Yeah. And I suppose using the wider brush there and a bit of the I was going to say I'll just stick the cadmium red into the colour, but that's a bit lazy, you know. I was just doing it because it was there. Sometimes it's good to give yourself the task of making the colour more clearly if you want it to. Okay, just a few touches of something else. Okay, and then yeah, I may as well just start working up into the eye now. I feel satisfied enough that things are positioned where the mouth was there felt too low for the shadows under the nose, and when the nose wasn't in the location I wanted it to be in, I couldn't really find the position of the eye, so it seemed important to me to move that. But I'm okay with there being flux. You know, I feel like it's not a bad time now to start doing something in the area of the eye, but probably not with the cadmium red. Put some sap green into that. And so I'm looking at, with my eyes half closed, looking at the shape of the shadow that's made. Like, I know there's more, now there's a triangle of light here and there's more shadow around it. But I'm not so inclined to do all of it. It doesn't seem to be that important to focus on all the shadows. Instead, I'm going to go into the eye and then see if anything else is called for. Sometimes going for the end, going for the destination can be helpful to see if actually there's enough elsewhere. So you don't have to finish it all out and then come up to the eye. Okay, so, but I do feel like it's helpful to have the landscape, the field fairly sure. So the edge of the face, the eyebrow, and the shadow that runs down the side of the nose there. Having all of those in place will help me to know how far down that shadow comes. So the height here from the eyebrow to the bottom of the eye socket, or where the shadow stops, is about the same as down to the bottom of the nose again. So it's about halfway down. Oftentimes I think we maybe don't leave enough space for the eye to sit in. So it's really good to notice the shape, the size of that socket. And I'm going to just make it, I just got the same colour there again now. It's a bit more fluid, so it's not quite as deep in tone as that, to find the bits out here. What am I doing now with my eyes half closed? I mean, it's all kind of in shadow really, so I could even afford to just go like that, really, to subdue all of it, so that I can more clearly make out where really the darks and lights need to be. This is why it is helpful, alright, sometimes to be working on other things as you're working on the eye, because it means that could have dried when I was doing something somewhere else. But there's still parts that I can work on while I'm waiting on that drying. Is there? Well, I think I can bring in a little bit of warmth into the... So there's two directions. I was saying that about the eyebrow. There's two directions to the eyebrow. There's two directions too to the... or two and sometimes three to the upper lid. So I'm looking at the lift up to the... So this is the eyelid from the inner corner of the eye up, and then it gets a bit horizontal for a while, and then it drops down. So depending on the angle that you're looking at her from, you'll be able to decide how steep that is and how much of the other side you can see. Some people mightn't be able to see the corner on one side at all. And then you might want to decide which is higher, which corner is higher. And it looks to me as though the corner on the outside is a little bit lower than, thanks Brenda, is a little bit lower than the corner on the inside. I'm doing that because I just want it to dry a little bit more. I'm putting a touch now of that warm colour here, where it is a bit dry. And anyway, the bit on the inside, it's okay if that bleeds a little bit because it's in the shadows and I don't really want harsh edges in the shadows. So we've got the line that's representing that side of the eye here. And then underneath is kind of warm there, that's fine. And then at the outer corner, I might put a bit of warmth in as well. Just drop it in. I don't think I'm going to be able to paint without coughing in the background. I've got so used to it. It's like it'll be unusual to be sitting to kind of think there's something missing. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. Sorry, that was making you feel conspicuous, wasn't it? Horrible. Okay, so I've just mixed some ultramarine blue into it now, and that's what I'm going to use to explain the. I could do it with that, but this is a better size for the iris, this 1/4 inch brush. So I'm going to pick up the same colour with that. And what I think I will do here is push and lift, and I'm going to see where the iris sits in relation to the bend in the eye above it. So I'm just wanting to kind of decide where the space the iris occupies and how much white is there on the left of it. What shape is the white of the eye? And it causes me to think I need to drop it down a little bit at the top, because it looks to me as though the white of the eye isn't, it's almost like the iris isn't really fully connecting with the lower lid really. It's just barely touching it. So the white of the eye comes along like a little, it skims underneath the iris. And it's good at this point to regularly step back, so you really do get an overview and see things before it's a little bit late, you know, you kind of see if there's something off. So I'm happy enough with the position of the iris there. And now I want to look again to see where else there are shadows that are significant and might help me. And I'm going to make a little bit of a lighter colour. So the blue is still in there, but it's got more red in it now. Because it looks to me like there's a kind of a shadow that runs diagonally to the bottom right of the iris. It's like it comes up to meet the upper surface of the lower lid here, and then around to describe where the corner of the eye might sit. And then I can do this second line, I think, yeah. And it might read as being a little bit big for now, but it's okay. We can kind of sort that. It's like helpful, I think, to just do the shapes and then adjust them. So I just put something in to describe the line that goes that way next. Yeah, it's almost as though there isn't really a separate. It could be that this is almost like the same little arc. It could be described all in one move. I feel like Kieran is very good that he's not disturbed by my quickly moving back and forth. He seems to be really quite chilled. Another dog would be jumping up at me, I'd say. Just so you know, Kieran is a dog. Around here. Behaving really well under the camera. Sorry?
It's partial finitude.
Is it? Oh God, stop. Don't tell me that then. Yeah, I blame the owner. One of us. I know, he's a lovely dog. So there's a bit of dark too. I'm noticing the eyebrow here, and just noticing the size of the skin between the eye and the eyebrow. And I think there could be a little bit more shadow here too, maybe a little bit more warmth in this area. And you'll find that when parts of the eye, when it dries, you can kind of come in afterwards with a different colour. It's helpful to distinguish parts of the eye from each other through using colour. You'll find that that's exciting, you know, as you find the position of things, that you can begin to adjust the colours to make it more clear, the separate parts. And of course, as it dries, you'll know from the other day, I think I mentioned that you're able to lift out some of the coloured part of the iris around the pupil there. I might just try and lift out a little bit of dark. And it's almost as though the iris the pupil is kind of like hanging down from the upper lid. So, and sometimes you might feel that it's a shadow that's cast on the top of the iris a little bit. It can be really quite satisfying, you know. And if you wanted to take a photo of Hope's eye, or see the eye a bit bigger, but it can be really satisfying to find what's happening here. You know, what are the things that are standing out? I find even although my eyesight isn't great now, it's still quite good to stay here and just see what's visible from here, because I can see her eyes from here, and it feels like there's enough information. Sometimes we can see too much, like. But my eyes aren't that bad at all. Like I only wear glasses for reading, really, so I can't speak for you. So if you need to go a bit closer, please. As far as I'm concerned, that's okay. Is that okay with you, Hope, if people want to come up closer to see your eyes? Okay. So just deepening the shadow at the top of the iris is helpful for me there. And now I'm noticing the eyebrow again, being a little bit darker here. And as you bring in darker tones in one feature, you might be inclined actually to get a bigger brush, and maybe now I feel like I want to re-establish, say for example, this dark here. You know, and then maybe there's a third place that might be located. And even possibly something here. You know, you're causing another platform for you to leap off each time. So that's why you can be quite bold in the beginning in terms of positioning things, because nothing that's there is going to really be as dominant as the darkest that you can find, and you'll be working up to it. And underneath, it's exciting having these plates that are operating off each other underneath, knowing that you can arrive at something that'll be pointed and clear. Given, especially if you're looking after yourself and breathing and, you know, able to still be attentive, you know. So as the day goes on, though, continue that kind of radar for looking after yourself too. Isn't it the whole thing? Oh, sorry. Alright, so I put a little bit of burnt sienna in there because I want to identify the fact that actually below the nose here is a little bit darker than the nostril itself. There's a shadow that seems now to be helpful to put in, just to kind of, I suppose, because I put the dark in where the cavity of the nostril is, I want to support it with some other indications elsewhere. So sometimes you might be inclined to think, oh God, that's way too dark there, take it off straight away. And actually if you leave it and just weather the storm, sometimes you can, if you put it in two other places, that same depth of tone, it'll kind of mean that the whole thing has a chance then of being brighter, bigger, bolder, more dramatic. You can bring in colour, you know, you can be more bold in other ways if you rise to the challenge of something and do you know what I mean by that? Like if you let it be as bold as it is in one place, you're caused to move forward then. You can do nothing but move forward. Whereas lifting it off, I suppose, means that you're being a bit slower and maybe not even moving, you know, there might be a, you get me, I think. Okay, thanks. So, yeah, so that's that now. And like there's a shape in the eye that I didn't fill in at all. I don't really know exactly why. It didn't seem to be important enough to fill it in at the moment, you know. So you'll find your own pathway through your painting. You'll see what it is that you feel like you want to establish clearly and what parts you want to leave space in. You know, there'll be breathing spaces in your work, and that's as important as the places where the marks are. And consider, yeah, Evie, sorry, 2 hours later.
No, I just want to come up and see it more closely.
Consider as well the energy that you bring to the mark. Feel free to go up. Consider as well the energy that you bring to it, because it's a lot more than where you're touching the page that's invested in each mark. It's something about your signature, your energy that brings, and your vision or what it is that's that you're responding to here, how you're feeling even. And then I think there's something then in moving beyond the page, you know, where it touches the page contains all of that power or something, you know. You kind of know the way, and only you can do that. Nobody else can make these marks from your position and your place, and see really what you're seeing. You know, it is a precious thing that the space you're occupying in each of you in front of your piece of paper. So well done. Gosh, all the best.